Hey, I'm Kenzie Lalonde, and this is the Wally and Methot Show. Here are your hosts, Brent Wallace and Mark Methot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. I'm Brent Wallace. He's Mark Methot, and a special thank you to Kenzie Lalonde, who voiced the intro for us today. Of course, Kenzie, no stranger to the microphone. She was the first female to do play-by-play in a Quebec Major Junior Hockey League game back on March 14th. She's on the show today. Looking forward to having a chat with her. Also, she's from Stittsville, where all the cool people hang out, as you know, Meth. And of course, coming up in the show, we have a guy. Listen, before we started this little podcast, you gave me a guest list of guys who you played with or were against you in the NHL. And one guy you told me said he wanted to fight me every time we played. So I knew we had to have him on very early in the show, and we've got him today. Hockey Night in Canada's Kevin Bieksa is on the show, who might be more of a media star than you are in Canada at the moment. I'm looking forward to it. I'm not so sure about you.
Yes and no, I guess. I'm not sure how to answer that. We've exchanged a lot of words, so this interview could go sideways.
Looking forward to it. I'm just going to sit back and relax. So also coming up, we've added a new segment to the show called You Want Answers. We've reached out on Twitter to ask you to give us some questions that are interesting and you want to find out some more about us. So we're going to go through some of those. And of course, today, trivial trivia as always, but Meth, we have got a fantastic prize to give away today, courtesy of our good friends at gongshow.com. We'll tell you all about it at the end of the show. It's even something I'm thinking you might even try and enter yourself. It is a fantastic prize. But first, as always, let's get to the headlines. Number one, not very appealing. We're going to have a little chat about that little incident with Tim Peel in the Nashville game. Number two, steal my sunshine. Let's go back and revisit that stolen puck in the Ottawa-Calgary game and what exactly was going on there. Number three, oh, brother. Would you like to see Matthew and Brady Tkachuk playing on the same team, Meth? Number four, someone save me. Which goalie do you protect in the expansion draft? And number five, Dzingel Bell Rock. That's right. What do you do with Ryan Dzingel as the trade deadline approaches? Okay, Meth, let's start with that incident in Nashville and the Detroit game of what transpired with the hot mic and Tim Peel. Now, of course, the NHL has come out and suspended, basically firing Tim Peel, and they really had to. They released a statement and it said, quote, "Nothing is more important than ensuring the integrity of our game," said Colin Campbell. He went on to say there is no justification for his comments, no matter the context or his intention, and the National Hockey League will take any and all steps necessary to protect the integrity of our game. The question is, Matt, is this really that uncommon?
I mean, I think first and foremost, I think people need to realize that this has been happening since I've been playing, and I'm sure long before then as well, right? Refs have always had a control, a grasp on the game and on the outcome to a degree, maybe, and that might be a bit of a contentious statement on my part. But I know from personal experience, I've been called many times in the past where you kind of have a bit of a head scratch and wonder where that came from, and you can only help but guess that they're trying to even up the calls during the game, and I hate it. I'd love to see it out of the game. I know it's been a part of it for a long time, and God, I hope I don't get in trouble for even saying that, but it's been an issue. And I guess this is just one of those rare instances where we've caught it on camera now and everyone's panicking and no one knows what to do.
So when you've been called, have you ever had an official say to you, listen, I need to make a makeup call, or gave you any kind of indication? Like Matt Duchene went on radio, I believe it was in Denver, and said basically that Tim Peel skated by the Nashville bench and told him the exact same thing that he was caught on mic saying. Have you ever seen or heard this before as the ref voices in a game?
I can't recall of an instance. I'm sure it's happened, and that's a bold statement with no proof behind it. But I mean, it happens, and sometimes as a player, you know what you've done on the ice, and when you watch the replay and you can see that there's no real reason for that call to happen in the first place, you got to wonder where it's coming from. But again, I've never really experienced it where I've actually heard a ref flat out say that he wanted to even things up. But I mean, we all know as fans and as current players and past players, it's prevalent, and it's just the way it is.
So how do you change it now? And the other question is, did they had to make this call?
Well, the main question, Wally, is why? Why are we doing it, right? Why is it happening? Why do people feel the need to even things up? To me, that's the question right now. It's why is it happening? Why is there motivation to do that? I still have no idea what the answer is, but Maybe it's just for the optics reasons, when you look at the game sheet after, to know that the game was evenly called and not dictated by a referee or an official. I'm not sure.
Okay, so then the question is, we always get upset with the International Ice Hockey Federation rules, the IIHF. We always say they call the game too tight. But in fact, they actually call the game the way it's supposed to be. Do we not just need to adapt IIHF rules, and then it's easy as that? Either it's a penalty or it's not. There's no gray area.
You can, but I hated playing under those rules at times just because they'd call literally everything. So maybe you adopt, a couple of their structured calls where it's just honest and they're not trying to keep things even. You just call it as you see it on the ice. And if the calls are slanted, 10-3 after a game, so be it. But again, it leads you back to my original point. I'd love to know why this has been a thing. And are there discussions? Who's having these discussions? Are people approaching the refs from the league and kind of setting a precedent ahead of time? I mean, I don't know. No idea.
This all plays into sports betting. And obviously it's a huge industry, right? So they can't have this kind of incident happening with people betting thousands of dollars, if you will, on a nightly basis on hockey, right? Like this has to come down to, at the end of the day, the NHL wants to get into sports betting in a huge way. And this becomes a huge problem if this gets caught on camera or on a microphone.
Yeah. And again, it just like, as you said there, Wally, it just comes down to the integrity, and they have to protect that right now. So right now it's code red, protect the integrity of the game, because things are going to change drastically moving forward, as you mentioned, with the gambling aspect. So again, this is damage control in full effect, and we're witnessing it firsthand happening in front of us. And I feel for Tim Peel to a degree, because I'm sure this is common among all referees. He just so happened to get caught on a hot mic, and he's a veteran. He's been around the league for a long time. We all respect him as players. It's too bad. We know he was towards the end of his career. I think you had mentioned earlier, Wally, that he's into retirement now after this season, possibly. So, I mean, hopefully things work out for him and he can go out properly.
Last question on this. Did you have any issues with any particular ref? Like, was there a ref you were like, I can't believe he's doing the game tonight because I'm going to end up with a penalty or something?
I think I can't say that there was a ref in particular that I didn't like or that always seemed to call me, although there probably are a few. I really like Wes. Wes McCauley is always honest. I know he's very colorful at times, calling penalties and whatnot, but I, as a player, always loved a referee that was just straight up with you. So if he called you, he'd have a very candid conversation with you, and he was willing to listen to you. You had some referees, that just had no time of day for you. If you were questioning their call, they'd be irritated, they'd shoo you away, and you'd go to the box and you'd be resentful for the rest of the game. But the good, honest guys that were willing to have that conversation were always the guys that I think as players we respected the most.
Did you guys check the game notes to see who was reffing the games? Do players pay attention? Yeah.
Every game. And you'd make sure. And I remember a lot of times if I'd forgotten a referee's name, I'd ask the D coach behind me, whoever it was that I was playing under, hey, what's his name again? Because you wanted to get familiar and almost kind of friendly with them to a degree, right? So that, and they're not maybe so willing as a young player. If you're a rookie, they don't really give you the time, but for veterans, they're willing to talk to you if you show them respect. So typically I'd always ask for their name so I can address them as such. And I was hoping that would give me favorable calls.
All right, moving on to number 2, Steal My Sunshine. So Philip Gustafson gets his first NHL win, and normally the goalie will get the puck, or if it's your first goal, you get to keep the puck. But the Calgary Flames decided that they were going to take the puck at the end of the game, and it nearly caused a bit of an issue. And then they threw it back on the ice. Matthew Tkachuk shot it away from Brady down the other end. Now, afterwards, Rasmus Andersson, who took the puck, said the incident was not intentional. Quote, I was just in the heat of the moment. I picked up the puck, and as soon as I realized it was his first NHL win, I chucked the puck back. Do you believe him?
I mean, there's not a whole lot to talk about here. I know it's been very highly discussed around the NHL and around all the media guys, but to me, it's simple. It was just gamesmanship, right? I think I do agree with Andersson. He's probably in the heat of the moment. He was, he's teed off and he wasn't happy. So what happens? Grabs the puck, tries to get away from the players a little bit, and then Tkachuk grabs it. I mean, it's simple. Was it entertaining? Yes. It's created talking points right around the league. And in the end, did they get the puck back? They did. So it's a non-issue now. I love it, though. I love that stuff because it's just entertainment. People got to remember that sports in general is entertainment. And this is what people want to watch and discuss after the games, because you're not necessarily always talking goals, right? So again, it just creates a storyline moving into the next game here. And I mean, whatever, it is what it is.
Okay, but hold on a second. If you're taking the puck at the end of the game when there are no fans in the building, it's not like you're going to take it and put it in your bag. So this is completely deliberate. And why I don't who are you trying to rile up? The other team? What difference is it going to make going to the next game? You're not going to try any harder to win the game, or you're going to be more mad because they went and took my puck?
You already know the answer, Wally. It's simple. They're just a bunch of pissed off players. They're trying to get under your skin. And it's as simple as that. I mean, we've had tons of instances, at least in my career, where I've seen that happen, and it's never been talked about. This has been discussed beyond belief. I have no idea why it happens all the time. So let's just get over it and move on. How about that?
No, I want to talk about it because we have a show to do. All right, I'll move on then. Enough of this. So oh brother, we'll continue on down this path. It looked like Matthew and Brady might actually get into it at the end of the last game over this whole puck incident, but people are curious. I've read this on social media a number of times. Do Brady and Matthew eventually end up on the same team together? And would you do it as a general manager? And would you like to see it?
So who's talking about this? Are these our passionate Sens fans here in Sens Town?
Yeah. It's just, it'd be fun to see perhaps the two Tkachuk brothers play.
That's fair. And yeah, I mean, I agree. It'd be incredible. And we're talking about two very, very good hockey players, right? So to me, there's two sides. Yes, for sure. Good call. If you can grab him, that's fantastic. Matthew Tkachuk just bleeds red right now for that team, plays with his heart on his sleeve. It would be absolutely idiotic to move him if you're the Calgary Flames. I don't care what the scenario is. I don't care what your cap's at. If you're having a hard time signing him, you're not getting rid of that guy, because teams itch and claw to find players like that around the NHL. So, I mean, it's a non-story. I don't believe it'll ever happen. But if you're a dreamer, you like the idea of it, I'm on board with it. I think it's a great call. It would be a fantastic idea. Imagine having two pests that can actually play the game very well and effectively on the same hockey club. It'd be pretty cool.
Okay, well, that was my next question. But first of all, everybody gets traded at some point, it seems. Like when we go back to even Wayne Gretzky got traded. So it could possibly happen that Calgary moves Matthew Tkachuk. Just let me throw back out one more thing, and you brought it up, having two pests on the same team. Is there room to have two of these types of players in the same lineup?
I don't think so, because that's a lot of personality to carry on in a lineup, as you know, right? So again, I just go back to my original point. It'll never happen, just because they're both incredibly effective players. It's like someone from another team trying to poach Brady off of us here in Ottawa. It's just, as a fan of the Ottawa Senators or an analyst or whatever you want to be, you can't imagine that happening. You can't imagine the Ottawa Senators getting rid of him. It's the same from their vantage point in Calgary. It's not going to happen. They're both just way too good of hockey players to get rid of.
But interesting to follow along. Like as contracts come up, people like to pay attention and notice, hey, the two Niedermayers played together in Anaheim and won a Stanley Cup. So
but that's different, right? You had a forward D-man combo, and they were much older in their career. So again, back to your point, Wally, you might be onto something there for talking down the road, right? Because things don't always work out on a team. It's a possibility down the road, but absolutely not right now.
Should point out the Niedermayers also a lot calmer than the Tkachuk brothers.
Different personality.
Something to keep in mind. Okay, let's move on to someone save me. So which goalie of the Ottawa Senators are you going to protect in the expansion draft? You can only protect one. So Matt Murray, Philip Gustafsson, Marcus Holdberg, or Joey Decord. What do you do? Now, then, going into this season, it would have been a no-brainer. You're just going to say Matt Murray. I don't think that's the case anymore. Do you?
Yeah. Well, and then because of the inconsistency there, I think people would then tend to lean towards Decord, right? But then he gets hurt. So now Gustafsson comes in, plays a little bit, does very well, then comes in for a full game, gets his first win. And now people are probably saying Gustafsson. But the problem with Decord and Gustafsson is that both sizes are just, the sample sizes are just way too small. I mean, I if I'm to pick one right now, okay, I'd probably go with Gustafsson, only because he's healthy at the moment and he's a big boy and he's 21. He's young, right? So for me, that's probably the no-brainer. And as I think people need to understand as well with goaltenders, a lot like D-men, but even more so with goalies, they just take longer to mature as players, right? So you'd like to think that he's only going to get better moving forward. So I'd have to go with Gustafsson right now, only because Decord's hurt and Murray's been inconsistent with the big price tag, who I still believe in, by the way. But Gustafsson would be my horse in that race.
So interesting, because you talk about Joey Decord being hurt, but when they make this draft, he's not good. He'll probably be healthy. He should be ready to go. And he's young, and so he wouldn't be the starter, whatever. I'm curious of why you think perhaps Gustafsson's better than Joey Decord based on you protecting Gustafsson.
I don't think he's better. But I didn't want to give you one. I didn't want to give you just a double answer and go, with the easy answer and pick both. But I think between the two of them, just based off of the amount of net that Gustafsson can kind of carry block off. Yeah. I just again, small sample sizes. It's such a hard question. And I don't have a direct answer. I don't have a crystal ball to know where they're going to be at in 5 years from now either. I love both of them. I love Decord's fight. He almost moves around like Hasek between the pipes. He scrambles really well. He's a passionate guy. I respect that. Obviously he has great work ethic, but I think for now I'm still going to stick with Gustafsson only because I just really liked how composed he was. You're not required to get him to move and make these extraordinary highlight style saves. For a backup goalie, he's just composed. He sits there. He covers a lot of the net. To me, I really like that.
Well, I want Joey Decord, and the Ottawa Senators going into the season said he was the goalie of the future. So I'm sticking with him. And I want to be entertained. I don't want the guy just to make the routine saves. I want him flailing like Dominic Hasek.
I want to win games. I want to win.
You just said we're in the entertainment industry. Okay, move on to finally Dzingel Bellrock. So what do you do with Ryan Dzingel? He loves to play in this building. Clearly, in his second foray back, he's got 5 goals. He's got 31 of his career 81 goals scored at the Canadian Tire Center. Likes to play for the Sens. It looks like he should belong in that lineup. Do you trade him at the trade deadline as a UFA? Do you sign him, or do you hope to just play him out the end of the year? Like, what do you do with Ryan Dzingel? I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah. So before I begin here, I have no idea what the fans want. Okay. So this might be an unpopular take, but I'm going to go with it based off my eye test from what I'm seeing on the ice. Okay.
Yeah.
For me, it's simple with Ryan. I know he wants to play here. That's a huge plus. Are people just not sick of the team getting rid of players that want to stay and play in Ottawa? Because I'm sick of that. I would love to see a guy that wants to stay here and grow with his team. I want to see the team throw him a bone and allow him to do so. And I know there's an argument to be made moving forward. And before I continue, of course, it would have to be under the correct term and the money has to be reasonable for both sides.
Right. That's understood.
But of course, but for me, and you can talk about where he fits in the lineup moving forward, because there may not be a ton of space off the bat when you're looking at the structure of the lineup on that wing. But if you move Paul into center, which to me, he belongs at center, then you've got space there. And Ryan's a fast guy. He takes really good care of himself. You'll get longevity out of him. He loves playing in this city, and he can score goals. And he can play those he can be that role player for you on a team on that third or fourth line if you need him to. He can kill penalties. I believe he can anyway. I'm sick of people just thinking we need to stockpile draft picks for these good players that are playing well for your team. I mean, you need good players insulated around your young core moving forward if you want to build this team to what I believe to be a Stanley Cup contender in 3-4 years from now. So this is one of those things. You make the decision, and the term doesn't have to be long either. You bring him in for a couple seasons, maybe, because I'm sure he'll want more than 1 year, but that's negotiation stuff. But again, I believe we sign him, you keep him in the system, and you see what he can do.
Well, I've been saying that for most of this season. You can't play every 20-year-old in your entire roster right now. Like, you have to be able to have quality NHL players, and they didn't have that at the start of the year. They brought in guys who weren't able to be those types of veteran players, and now they've maybe found a couple with Clark Bishop and Ryan Dzingel, and I think they got to play them and not worry about Alex Formanton or whoever's in the minors right now of getting them a spot on the roster. Wait for them to earn that roster spot.
Yeah, and we have to throw a little love towards Austin Watson too. He's been really good for the team. I know
for sure.
He's injured. Yeah, and he's been a fantastic penalty killer, and he puts his body on the line. So I want to throw him a little love too, because that's one guy that they did get right bringing in, and it's good for the culture of the team.
Yep, he's been fantastic addition, no question about it. All right,
yeah.
Coming up after the break, he's here. Kevin Bieksa from Hockey Night in Canada. We'll ask him why he always wanted to fight the bigger but less mobile Mark Methot. And Kenzie Lalonde coming up after that. And of course, we have Trivial Trivia, which now is sponsored by our good friends at gongshow.com. And wait till you see what the prize is today. Don't go anywhere. You're watching the Wally and Methot Show. All right, welcome back to the show. Please be joined now by the second number 3 in our show, but number 1 in a lot of Vancouver Canucks hearts, that's for sure. Kevin Bieksa, who played over 800 NHL games and now the star of Hockey Night in Canada. Elliot Friedman will be upset with me for that comment. But Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. Couldn't wait to get the call once I saw you were coming out with the podcast. Looking forward to this one.
We bumped you up. You're into show number 6, by the way. So we thought highly of having you on.
I'll take 6. My number in college for 1 year, one really good year. But certainly the guests you've had before me have been very deserving. So I'm happy to be at 6.
So first, I want to get to the relationship perhaps that you and Mark have had over the years, because he tells it one way. I'm just curious if you have the same feeling that you always wanted to fight him.
Yeah, it was love-hate, and I'd say 95% of that was hate. And the love came when we spent a week together in Zurich. I think it was about a week, maybe not even, and that was a little bit of the love. But before that, it was, I just looked at him all the time. He never had enough tape on his blade of a stick. He had like the tongues out. He had no visor on. His style just made me want to fight him, right? And he played the game hard. I played the game hard. We just clashed. I remember him in Columbus. I'm like, that's my guy. Like, we're gonna battle tonight. It was almost like me and Phaneuf too. Phaneuf's, I'm sure, a great guy, but we always battled. It's the same number. It's the style of play. But then when we spent a week together, and I'm not going to bury him for some of the things he did, but I saw the good guy in there. There's a good guy in there somewhere.
It's funny you say that, because Dion, I hated Dion. Hated him. He was my first NHL fight. And I guess I met him at the same thing. I met him at the World Championships, and we became pretty close. So, I mean, the on-ice character is never really always reflective of off-ice, right? So, but Juice, I still remember just being on draws, and you'd be standing there on the blue line as a D-man trying to fight me. And there's a couple things going through my mind, because I'd be playing against the Sedins all the time, right? And I'd be a little rough sometimes with them.
Humble brag. Humble brag.
Well, whatever. Well, we didn't have a great team in Columbus, right? So I was always playing against them. So Juice would be over their winger, yelling at me and calling me out. And I'm not a fighter, obviously. And the only time I would fight is if I was legitimately angry about something. But Juice, and the guy has Superman punches in his catalog of fights. So I didn't want to be Superman punched in front of 18,000 people, and B, I was never pissed off. So I never understood it. He was all over me all the time.
Well, how did you get Dion to fight you? Because I wish I knew.
I jumped him.
B, you just answered your own question. You were so hard on the Sedins, which was your job, but I got it from the same end, right? I had guys like Chris Neal who didn't like how hard I was on Alfie and Spez, and I had to, deal with that. So, I mean, I don't think I was ever actually really mad at you. I just wanted to get in your grill and just kind of maybe if you took it a little bit easier on the Twins because of my death threats and my staring at you and the threat of maybe a fight, maybe that was doing my job, but it was all in good fun.
Fair enough.
Meth is a lot bigger though. Did size ever matter when you're going into a fight? I know you fought Tom Wilson and whatnot, but did you look at him going, he's a lot bigger? You're like, he's a little bit of a pushover.
Well, physically or ego wise? Yeah. No, you know what? I loved fighting bigger guys. So Meth size, perfect for me. When I hit the bag in the summer and when I did all my training, I had a bag that was 6'3", Dion Phaneuf size. So I always pictured fighting Phaneuf, and Meth is the same size as him. And that's who I trained for. So all my punches and all my, my left hook coming in or my Superman punch were all dedicated to a 6'3" frame. So Meth fell right in that. That was perfect.
So I made a really wise decision to not fight him. Oh, it's cool. It's all because I still remember running into Juice at the Worlds. And I remember walking in the room and kind of locking eyes with him. He probably doesn't remember this, but I just remember thinking like, oh, like, here we go. Like, I wonder what this dialogue is going to be like, but it turned out to be okay. And he wasn't such a bad guy. So
no, I looked at that roster and I saw you too, but you know what? I've never had a problem with any guy that I've either fought on the ice or I've
same here
after I've met them. But you play with Derek Dorsett, right? In Columbus. So Dorse and I, same thing. We never we did fight. We fought in preseason. Bodie was with the Rangers, and him and I were always going at it. And then he came to Vancouver, and we were super close. We still talk to this day.
Yeah.
So, there was only a few guys that I ever actually fought with that I had ill feelings towards after. Most of the other guys, quick story, Tom Kostopoulos, actually, first time I ever fought Tom Kostopoulos, one punch, he closed my eye, dislocated my nose, and chipped my tooth with one clean punch. I didn't even feel it. It was so clean. We were in the pocket banging. He caught me clean. Tip your cap. He got me. And then I fought him 8 months later, split him open for stitches. And then we saw each other in Disneyland in an elevator with our 4 kids. And we just shook hands and laughed and like, hey man, how's it going? It was totally fine. Like, it's just the way hockey players are, right?
Yeah. It's messed up, eh? Like, when you guys think about it, like, the only sport that just barehanded fights happen at any given point, and then you're just cool after the game. Like, no other sport. You can't bare fist punch somebody and break his fucking nose. You know what I mean? So it's
and in the moment, in the moment, you want to kill the guy too, right? In the moment, you're like,
it's crazy.
I'm gonna put this guy's nose on the side of his face. That's what you're thinking. And then after, he's with his kids after. You're like, oh, coochie, how are you? What's your name?
It's crazy.
Totally changed gears.
Yeah.
So was there anybody, I guess maybe it's Kostopoulos, anybody that caught you by surprise where you went into a fight and you're like, uh-oh, I shouldn't have done this?
I fought a couple guys in the minors that I didn't quite know what I was getting into, but my first year in the minors, the lockout year, it was all guns a-blazing. I was just trying to make a name for myself, stay in the lineup. Who knows about getting to the NHL the next year, but I fought a lot of guys that year that I didn't even know who they were, what their background was. And I took some hard punches and I took some tough fights. And then when I got to the NHL, I made sure I didn't make that mistake again. And I did a lot more research. I was more prepared. I had a book on every single guy that I would possibly come across in a fight. I watched every fight on hockeyfights.com from that night.
Really?
I mean, I over prepared. It was a part of my game. And although I wasn't a guy, like I mentioned, Dorsett or Jared Bold, who fought 25 times a year, I fought like 5 to 7, 8 times a year, but every fight was an important one. I couldn't afford to lose a fight like I did to Kostopoulos. And luckily I only did that once. I fought Ben Eager once in a line brawl in Chicago, but I didn't take him lightly going in. I knew I was outside of my weight class a little bit. He knocked my first tooth out with a stiff jab and got up and kept fighting him. But those are the two that I can remember that stick out for taking some tough punches. And I love to get hit in a fight, guys. I know we're talking about fighting a lot, but I love to get hit in a fight as long as I won. So yeah, hit me. I want to feel it. I want to wake up in the morning with a shiner. I want to wake up in the morning and walk my kids to school and one of the dads be like, what happened? I'm like, oh, I got into a fight. I love that part as long as I won the fight.
Yeah, one last question on fighting, and that was, I think, Andy Andreoff. I'm not even sure that's his name. You fought him 3 times. Why?
Yeah, I mean, just the Ducks Kings rivalry. I think I fought Kyle Clifford a few times. It's just Ducks Kings. It's hard. It's like the Battle of Ontario, Ottawa, Toronto, and like back in the days when it was pretty physical and violent. Ducks Kings down here is a huge deal. It's we're 45 minutes away from each other. Both teams hate each other, and when we fought them, they were wars. And he was their 4th line centerman. And Clifford was a 3rd, 4th line winger, and those were my guys, right? When things will go down, and Perry would start all the fights, and if somebody would go after Getzlov or Kessler, those were my guys, and they were fun battles. They were all good fights, all 5 with those 2 guys.
You talk about
me. Go ahead, Wally. Sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead, Matt.
I was gonna say no because he mentioned Kessler. I was just curious on him. What's he like? I hated playing against that guy. I'd skate like when we were not just in Vancouver, but when he was in Anaheim, I'd be skating on the red line and he'd take a jab on my calf. I'd turn around and swing at him. he was just a prick. Like, and he does those down and backs, like blue line, red line in pregame warm up, and he'd splash you if you're stretching too close to the red line. Like, what's his deal?
You guys would be best friends. You'd be best friends.
I highly doubt that. Highly doubt it.
Two miserable guys. Just you know what? He was the ultimate competitor, but he didn't know how to turn it off. Like when he woke up in the morning, he woke up and he hated your guts if you were on the other team. And it was very hard. We just talked about turning it off and on a little bit. It was hard for him, and it still is hard for him to turn it off. He's just a competitor. And he's just thinking, I'm going to beat you. So whether that's splashing you in warm up with snow on the red line, there's not going to be too many nice conversations if you're his opposition or enemy.
Do you have any battles with him, playing with him at all? Like friendly teammate banter?
We get into a fight a year, at least one fight, like real fight in practice. Yeah. In practice, where we would either drop the gloves or it would just be a gloves on punching in the head, and the coaches. This one time, we were on the ice. It's a long story, so I'll shorten it up for you. But he blocked a shot like we all do. Well, what he liked to do is he liked to make sure everybody knew. Everyone
knew about it, yeah.
So for 3 weeks, and when we walk out the tunnel to go on the ice, it was like it was Sedin, Kessler, me, Burrows. So I always walked behind him, and he was limping for about 3 weeks. Every time we'd walk onto the ice, he would limp, and then he'd get on the ice and he'd skate around 1,000,000 miles an hour. So I'm like, enough. We get it, right? So I start mocking him the one time, walking on the ice, probably to play you guys. And Burrows is behind me. He's laughing. He turns around and he sees us, and he didn't talk to us for 3 weeks. And you go to the rink every day.
You can't ignore anybody.
If Carlson didn't talk to you for 3 weeks while you're playing, like it would be so weird and awkward. Like you're at the rink every 100%. Day. He sits beside me on the bus. We were roommates at the time, so he didn't talk to me for 3 weeks. And Burrows eventually just apologized. And I said, screw this guy. Like, I am not apologizing. I'm holding my ground. So anyways, there was some tension building up, and we're on the ice for a morning skate one day, and most of the guys get off the ice. And I'm just like, I'm mad at him that he's mad at me. So
I get it.
So he's at one end, like shooting pucks in an empty net. Rick Bowness is leaning against the boards, and there's only me at one end and Jeff Tambellini, if you remember him, he's on the ice. So I just start firing pucks down the ice in Kessler's direction, just trying to get some sort of reaction. So I hit him in the skate a couple times, just what I planned. And he looks down at me, he goes, "What the F's your problem?" And I go, and I just beeline at him, and I like drop my gloves, and I'm like, let's settle this. And Rick Bowness is against the glass, and Jeff Tambellini's like, "Bones, they're gonna fight. They're gonna fight." And he goes, "No, they're best friends. They're best buddies." And then he sees me drop my gloves from like the other zone and starts skating after him, and like Bones sprints across the ice like, break it up. So we had a couple of those situations, yeah.
Oh, and awesome. You brought up Alex Burrows, and I know like the three of you were kind of like a trio. Did you know how much Meth and Burrows hated each other, and that they were roommates at that World Championship for like five days or whatever it was?
Until Meth quit, right?
Yeah. Wait, okay. No. Okay. No, I first of all, I had no business even being there in the first place. And I still remember in Ottawa, everyone, yeah. Okay, so I've got this awful back, like debilitating. I can't move. I've been getting scans done prior to the tournament. Team Canada calls, and the guys, our trainers, everyone goes, "Oh, yeah, just go. It'll be fine." I'm like, okay, fine. We'll go. We'll try it out. I get on a plane for like 7 hours. You get off the plane, you got a bad back. You can imagine what that does. So I get to the rink, and I can't even tie my skates, and we're not even into the games yet. So the worst part of this whole story, I'll shorten it up. I go to my hotel room to check in, and Burr is my roommate. I hate Burr. I hate him. I think he's I hated him more than you, because he was a rat. So I get in the room, and we look at each other. We both kind of shrug shoulders, and I'm just kind of like. And he does the same thing. He like sighs, and he sees me. And I got this bad back. I'm sleeping like shit. And sure enough, like 9-10 o'clock rolls around. Burr snores like a chainsaw. I can't fall asleep in the room. So I'm like, I can't do this. I wanted to hit him in the face with a pillow. So I call my agent at like 3 a.m. I'm like, Larry Kelly. I'm like, Larry, I got to get out of here. He's like, no. He's like, Matt, that's fine. just stay there, gut it out for a little bit. I'm like, no, Larry, you don't understand. I got to go home. Get me out of here. Burr's snoring. I got to leave. So that's when I had the flight booked a couple of days later. And I think Burr stole my watch. I had a watch that I'd left in that room.
Didn't.
I swear to God, I'm not making this up. And I think Burr stole my watch. And I remember texting him when I got home, and he never replied to me or anything. He was just playing it off like I didn't exist. Anyway, that's my Burr story. And then I played with him in Ottawa, and we got along okay. But I hated him, man. That's
well, I ended up getting number 3, so I wasn't that upset when you left. They're like, Methot gets number 3 because he's played more international games than you.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, cool, I get it. That's fine. But I didn't know that you and Burr were roommates. It's a tough draw for you.
Yeah, it is. Let's move on.
That was the year. That was the first time you represented Canada, was at that World Championship, and you were named team captain. I'm just curious what that was like for you. I know the result wasn't what you wanted, but certainly you were named one of Canada's top 3 players. I think it was a pretty good tournament for you.
Well, I had a few offers, Wally, to play for my country, but I think I was fortunate. We only missed the playoffs maybe 2 seasons. And at the end of those 2 seasons, I was always banged up from an injury. So the other previous times I was asked, I couldn't do it just physically, right? Like meth, like not that I didn't want to. Anytime your country calls, you're like, for sure. And that was my first opportunity. And it was later in my career. Not later, but I was 33. So yeah, I was at, 3-4 years left of my career, and I jumped at it. I'm like, awesome, perfect. Can't wait. Pumped. And then when I went there, it was great. It was a great experience. We had all those young guys, and Meth, you didn't get to experience it, but you had McKinnon coming off his first year, Monahan, Scheifele,
good players.
Huberdeau, Morgan Riley was our 7th defenseman. Picture
I
that.
know. I remember that too. And he looked like a kid, a little baby.
He played second unit power play with me, and he was our 7th, so he would rotate and get like 1 or 2 shifts a period with me. Like the guy's like, an unbelievable player now, but he was a year or 2 into his career. So we had all these young studs, and we knew, like I knew, I'm sure Burrows knew, like these kids were going to be studs. It was just a matter of time. And we, it's funny. We go out and, like you said, I'm the captain. So I feel like as an older guy, my job is to galvanize this team. So early in the tournament, when we finally get to Belarus, I'm like, we're going out for, some drinks, some food, some camaraderie. And, nobody speaks English in Belarus, nobody. So we go to the first place, and we can't even order any food or drinks because the menu's in Russian and nobody speaks, or just like vodka. So all we drink is vodka, like no chasers, can't even order Coke to go with it. Right. And then we end up going on to the next place, and it's the only guy who speaks English in the whole country. And he lets us in, and he's like, okay, it's a beautiful looking establishment. And he gives us a section. There's nobody there. And he goes, just stay here. It'll be really busy by 11. So we're there at like 9, 10. There's nobody there. All of a sudden, this place is packed. We Are the Champions is playing, and our whole team is just belting out all the words, drinking, singing this. We haven't even played a game yet in the tournament, and we're singing We Are the Champions. Fast forward to 36 hours later, we lose to France in a shootout. First time Canada's ever lost to France ever. And that's at my helm. I'm the captain, and we're singing We Are the Champions the night before. So luckily we rattled off seven wins after that to get to the quarters, but tough start for the boys.
But what do you think of Belarus? Like, I was at that tournament. What a beautiful city that was. And it ended up being a lot of fun at the end of the day.
Yeah, you probably had a lot of fun. We were
I heard, by the way, there was a Team Canada player that went missing for 2 days, and I won't name the name.
Well,
during that tournament?
He went to the first game, he went to the wrong rink, because remember there was the 2 rinks and they were like 40 minutes apart.
Oh yeah.
And our young 19-year-old superstar went to the wrong rink, and nobody was mad at him. We're like, this guy got kidnapped. Like, where is he? and he made it for warm up, just in time for warm up. But yeah, like the World Championships, it's like work hard, play hard, and there's playing and there's fun, and then. But it's like anything, you get on the ice and the competitive juices get going.
Yeah, like that's something we got to say. Team Canada does it up like big time, right? Like they section off a lounge room, and they've got an Xbox and TVs for everybody, good food. And that first week's always the best part. You roll in there in like that little test city, like the lead up city to like the main event, and everyone just goes out for beers and has like, dinners and all that stuff. It's a lot of stuff that people don't typically see. So I miss it. I'm glad I went to a couple of them.
Well, some guys after they go out for drinks, they go to McDonald's late night.
Oh yeah, I've been there too. With Dion and I did that. We ordered like yeah.
Hey, I still have a picture of you, and you ordered. I remember you ordered like 10 medium fries for yourself, and you went outside and you just sprinkled it all over the streets of Zurich, and like just feeding everybody. You're like, oh, you want some fries? You want some fries? And you just fries for the whole city.
They always said Juice has always been a really good storyteller, and it's on display right now. So thank you.
Half of that's true. Half of that's true.
Yeah, that's true. Anyway.
Last hockey question before I move on to your new roles, both of you in media. I want to know, both of you didn't get a chance to end your career the way you wanted to, mostly maybe because of injury. I know, Juice, you tried to play again or tried to come back. Is it disappointing for both of you? Is it hard to accept the way that your hockey careers end, that you're just maybe trying to play one more game, that you don't get to leave the ice the way you want to?
First of all, stay positive, Wally. Way to like take her down a few notches. No, I played 13 years in the best league in the world. I'm sitting back right now with no regrets, and I'm proud. You know, everybody, I think it's human nature that you want more. Everybody wants more, no matter what it is, right? Like I wanted a Stanley Cup. Meth wanted a Stanley Cup. I wanted 100 more games. I'm sure Meth wanted 100 more games, but at the end of the day, we're pretty fortunate. I had a bad injury in my last year. But you know what? I have no regrets. I had a great career, met a lot of great people. It's an amazing game. It's a great league. You can't dwell on the negatives.
Yeah, I can't even follow. Like, how do you follow that up? You nailed it. I think with me, it's different to a degree because I still deal with the same injury that kicked me out, which is my bad knee. But other than that, you're right. I mean, it was a privilege to play in that league. It's sappy, but it's the truth. So, yeah.
Well, you both seem to have done very well moving on, and that's to the media side of things. Juice, when did you know that you wanted to perhaps pursue the media side?
I don't even know if I still know. I think I'm just having fun with it and just keeping it light and taking it easy. I think in my playing career, I was asked so many bad questions. And I just thought, like, there has to be somebody better at this job than some of these guys. So I'm like, and I'm no disrespect. I'm just kidding a little bit, but
you know, I feel like you're looking right at me.
Well, he's sweating right now.
Yeah, like, is this over?
I just approach it like anything. I think anybody who sees me on air and knows me personally thinks it's the exact same person. I don't think I'd change anything to be on air. And some people like that, some people don't. But at the end of the day, I'm just having fun being myself, talking hockey. I love the game, as we just talked about. I love the league, but I also know it's a game. And at the end of the day, like we're here to have fun. We're here to entertain, and it's a fun game to watch. People work all week in Canada and the US, and then on the weekends they just want to sit back and have a beer and watch Hockey Night in Canada, watch some good hockey, couple fights, couple goals, and just be entertained. So my job is, the way I see it, is talk a little hockey, entertain a little, and make it a great experience.
Yeah, and Juice, I had a question for you on that, just because my first year getting out, I was getting requests to get involved with whoever. And the hardest part for me personally was sitting back and critiquing and analyzing guys. At first I had a hard time with that. I'm like, I don't know if I want to be pointing the finger at players. And I'm not saying, like, not necessarily that you do it that way, but I know that when you start critiquing and analyzing, you know, it's sometimes comes across a little different. So did you have a hard time with that, like with that little transition?
I think I'm cautious about it. I think I know what it's like to be a player. Like, I know what it's like to be a player sitting in the room watching Coach's Corner or another show. And if you're that guy getting picked on or critiqued, and I was fortunate that Don Cherry loved me, and so he never really picked on me, but I saw him pick on some of my teammates, and I know how that feels, right? So I don't try to do that. I'm a pretty positive guy, but if I break down a play and somebody's in the wrong, I think I can get across that player made a mistake without burying them. Exactly. Without really, like, I can say, like, Freddie Anderson knows that he probably should have had that shot. Like, oh, Freddie's a teammate of mine, or John Gibbs, like, you can spin it in a way that it's not negative and burying a guy. Because at the end of the day, we're all pretty accountable guys that played in the NHL, and we're used to breaking down film and being like, my bad there. That was my fault. That was his fault. So as long as you're not doing it with such a negative, harsh tone, I think it's okay to point out, but I like to point out the good stuff as much as I can.
Good call.
So does the red light, or do you ever get nervous when the camera comes on? Like, was that ever an adjustment for you to take your playing mentality and put it in front of a camera?
Not really, and it's probably going to end up being my downfall eventually because unfortunately I don't have a filter, and there's times now where maybe before we go on, more so when I'm in studio, and I'll say, "Can I say this?" And they're like, "Yeah, you can say anything once." And I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay, I get it." So I think I understand the world we live in right now, and you guys starting your podcast now, you have to be aware it's a sensitive time. And it's a sensitive culture, and you have to toe the line and walk the line very carefully. So you have to get across your opinions. And at the end of the day, like I said, I'm there to talk hockey. I'm there to entertain you. I'm not there to talk politics. I'm not there to talk policy. And as long as I think you stay in your lane and you do your job, I think you'll be okay. But you have to be careful of what you're doing for sure.
Why do you pick on Elliot so much?
Because I love him. Right. If I didn't like Elliot, we wouldn't say two words to each other. But again, I think I'm pretty fair with everybody. I think, again, if you know me, whether you're my mother-in-law or you're my best friend or you're my business partner, I attack everybody the same way. It's equal love for everybody, and it's equal chirps. And I just feel like everybody should be at an even playing field. So while I respect, Ron and Berkey and the older guys like that, I still playfully go at them at the right time with respect, right? But Elliot's certainly right in my wheelhouse, and I won't let him get away with anything.
You've done such a good job of trolling people with your photos in the background, and I guess even the cutout, if you will, of Berkey. Was that planned? Was it's so lifelike, it's concerning. Was that planned? How did that start?
It started, it's my wife, guys. Honestly, like I'll my wife will bounce some ideas off of me, but she's the one that came up with like the burrows. She's the one that ordered this Berkey sign. The Vern Fiddler was her idea as well. Like I'd like to take credit for it, but she's the set designer. And I just kind of give her full reign because it's just another fun thing to have a little bit of a backdrop, and it's entertaining, right? So I like having something on there and not even commenting on it and letting people just zoom into the picture. You see the snapshots on Twitter and Instagram. You're like, oh my God, he's got that in the back. Like that's the stuff I love, like the subtle things that only some people pick up on. So makes for a little bit of conversation.
It is. So I always look to see what's going on in the background. Go ahead.
Yeah, man. To touch on that. Yeah, I've been following it a little bit too, and the amount of engagement you're getting on Twitter from it's crazy, man. Everyone's zooming in. I had a question for you though, with regards to doing the broadcasting thing now and juggling family, kids, and I'm sure you've got hobbies. I know you like to take good care of yourself and you train hard. I'm very similar in that respect. How do you do it, man? Like where do you find the time to like do things you enjoy doing, like hobbies, juggling your kids, workouts, and then obviously this new line of work where you're watching games? Like, what do you do?
Well, life's busy, but I prefer it that way. I think my first year I didn't play, and I didn't, I still haven't retired, but I knew the first year I was maybe going to play, maybe wasn't. So I was training like I would be playing, and I wasn't as busy. But now I started opened up a hockey academy a couple of years ago in Southern California here for kids. Nice. So I'm at the rink, I'm on the ice 3 hours a day. And then, I like to get some sort of a workout every day. Kids are on online school. So after their days are done, my daughter and I like to walk to Starbucks and get a drink, spend some time together. I'm with my dog all the time. And then Saturday nights are all hockey night. And it's busy, but it's fun, and that's what it's all about. I'm hitting every major area. So I don't have withdrawals as much from not playing because first of all, I'm on the ice 3 hours a day with kids, and it's fun, right? The kids want to learn, they're eager, they're hungry. And then, I'm still exercising. So I get that. I like to golf at least once a week. So I get a little bit of the competition there, a little bit of the travel with the hockey night thing. So it's a balance. It's a balance like anything, right?
Yeah.
Final question before we let you go, because we appreciate your time. And that is, as everybody always wants to know, perhaps prognostication. So who is your Stanley Cup favorite, and are they in the North Division?
No, they have to be, guys. I hate to say it, but It's not the Ottawa Senators.
I think we can all agree. Don't worry.
2 to 3 years. Talk about lighting up social media. Oh my God.
Well, they all bid on it. They all bid on
drunk?
it. It was so incredibly obvious, right? But anyway.
Yeah, I know.
So who do you got?
I knew what you were doing, but you're right. You got a reaction. I still think Montreal is a good team, and I've been saying it from the beginning. They're built for the playoffs. I love Carey Price is going to find his game. They got Jake Allen if they need him. Sherratt's going to come back. Their top four is as good as anybody in playoff type hockey. So you know what the games are like in the playoffs. It's tight. It's tight checking. You got Edmondson and Sherratt on the left. You got Petrie and Weber on the right. Good luck. Good luck getting to the front of the net, right? You got Romanov, who's come into his own. Kulak, solid. And then you got like Suzuki, who's the next Bergeron, they say. You got Anderson, the beast. I don't know if you know him from the Columbus days, but Perry's a playoff guy. I really like their team. They have to get into playoffs. That's the thing. They're not guaranteed. Go ahead.
No, I'm agreeing with you. I was saying, like, that's a really good point. Even with Perry, like, they've got the depth right now too. I loved them at the start of the year, and then they just started tanking a little. And I'm like, I couldn't figure out what the issue was, because I was saying the same thing on the radio. They're built for playoffs, and I love their decor. So I know everyone's leaning on Toronto right now, and even Winnipeg, like, they're creating a little bit of noise too. But
it was like coaching maybe is going to help, right? You know, like when Dan Bilesma came in halfway through the season, Pittsburgh went on to win. And same thing was Sully. Like, these mid-season changes sometimes just give that team that's close that extra boost. And what team in the North Division hasn't had a lull yet? If you think about it, Toronto's going through a big lull right now, even though everyone says they're the best team. Winnipeg had a slow start. Montreal's in their lull right now. Edmonton was brutal for a while. Calgary's been brutal for a while. So I think these games, guys, and you've probably talked about it, how you're like playing 2-3 game sets against the same team. I'm a college guy. I played 2 game sets my whole college career. It's tough to win both. It's usually a split. You go through downtimes, but at the end of the day, you look at the way these teams are built, and I stick with Montreal coming out of the North. Yeah,
I think the only thing with Toronto is their goaltending. That's their lull is straight up their goaltending issues right now, right? And that's kind of been hit or miss all year. They got away with it at the start, but I like Montreal. I like that call too, Juice. So I'm with you on that.
Does that mean then Montreal still has the trident, or do you have to come up with a new name because they got 4 guys on the blue line?
Yeah, no, I think Edmonton leads the NHL in plus minus, even though it's a terrible stat. It looks favorable for him. So I don't know. What's the 4-pronged trident? You tell me.
I'll wait for you to.
I don't even know what you guys are talking about right now. So
I watch TV once in a while. Hockey Night in Canada. Turn it on. Saturday nights.
No, I usually got you guys on mute. I'll play Warzone in between periods instead of listening to you.
Kevin, I don't know how to get out of this, but I appreciate your time. So thanks for stopping by.
Pleasure being on the show, guys. Had a lot of fun.
Thanks, Juice.
All right, welcome back to the Wally and Methot Show. Joined now by Kenzie Lalonde, who is the play-by-play voice of the Halifax Mooseheads and happened to just set, let's call it a record, if you will. She became the first female to call the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League game not that long ago, March 14th, which she called the Halifax Charlottetown game. Kenzie, welcome to the show and congratulations.
Wally and Methot, guys, this is an honor. A little Stittsvillian of me joining you guys. It's an honor.
That's the best part. We're going to get to Stittsville after, because we got lots of things to talk about Stittsville. And of course, I spent a lot of my time in Halifax and started my career in Halifax, so we'll get to that as well. But first, let's talk about you calling some games. And I know you've been asked a million times probably, but can you take us through that day and being able to call that game?
It was crazy. Like the night before was definitely the most heightened I've been, anxiously, emotionally. It was overwhelming. And so, it was about 8 p.m. and I, started to go down a bit of a mental spiral thinking, can I do this? Is this happening? And I got an unexpected phone call from Leah Hextall. So of all women to understand going into a game like Sunday, it's her. She was the first one to call the National Hockey League game for International Women's Day last year. So we spoke for almost like 45 minutes and she just calmed me right down and, was saying, it's challenging because you feel like you have the weight of your gender on your shoulders, but all you want to do is do the job. You want to do the thing you love, but there's these external pressures that just happen to be there because of your gender. So we had a great conversation about that, and she really climbed me back down to reality and made me feel good. So as I'm trying to fall asleep that night, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling confident, and then my phone blows up because Chris Cuthbert mentioned the opportunity on the Leafs broadcast that night. So my phone's blowing up and I'm just trying to fall asleep, and the support meant everything to me. So when I went into Sunday afternoon's game, I was very calm. The team, both Halifax and Charlottetown, were so supportive, the league as well. It was unbelievable. I just felt like there was a giant hug around me and so much support. So the game was a bit of a blur. I mean, the first goal was hilarious because the game wasn't the most exciting first period of action. And then as I'm speaking about, oh yeah, it'd be great if things could get a little more exciting, Marcus Vidicek, gets one right from the point and opens the scoring. So it was hilarious. I can't believe my first call, I say like, hey, so I'll have to live with that for the rest of my life. But it was sweet. It was such a good day. And I mean, it's only up from here. I'll be now calling the Halifax News Heads for Eastlink moving forward. So great day for women who want to pursue a role of play-by-play. And I just happen to be the one to start things off in the queue.
And so many questions. And I go to that goal and I go to that game and you say it's such a blur. And I talked to Chris Cuthbert today because I know he reached out to you and he's a good friend of mine. I said, like, what did you tell her? And if, what would be the older Chris Cuthbert telling the younger self? And he said, to remember and enjoy that game and try and just take it all in. And he said, I wish I had a thought back and remembered and taken it all in that day. And so I'm wondering, just now that you look back and it hasn't been that long, have you watched the game?
No, have not had time. I would like to. I would like to. I mean, it's nice. We get to tweet out our highlights at the end of the game. So, I mean, my calls will always be there, but in terms of the game itself, I did try and stay present. I mean, Leah made sure to reiterate that concept, and I actually wrote on a little sticky note, stay present during the game. So it was right next to my truck mute button. So, those are very important. So that's where I stuck it. And during the game, though, I had another shout out of Ron McLean and Tara Sloan. So coming back from commercial break, that threw me off guard, but in all the most wonderful ways. But, as you know, when you're on a broadcast, you have your in-truck producer telling you, turn the red light off. We also have to control the red light. So, I have her being like, turn it off. And then I have my color commentator being like, I got this. And I'm just trying to enjoy Ron McLean said my name. So it was an overwhelming game, but I did kind of slow things down mentally in the third period and was able to digest it.
What is that red light like for you? So for me, I wasn't that good if the red light wasn't on because there wasn't that urgency, right? When you're recording stuff, you get to take it over and over again. So when that red light came on, you had no choice but to actually make it work. So is it the same for you? Is that same adrenaline rush?
Oh, absolutely. And I've been doing live television. That's all we really do in hockey and sports for our Eastlink community television programming. So I'm used to live television. So when that red light goes on, I know there's no take two. So I'm used to that. And I would say, yes, there's this weird confidence. There's this weird Kenzie that comes through and I can't explain it, but I get calm, cool, and collected. And I'm internally sometimes freaking out, but that doesn't come across on camera. And I'm very grateful for that. And my color commentator, Logan Delaney's hilarious. Like if we do, a pre-recording or something like that, he'll play with me and he'll make jokes through our pre-game. So he really knows how to lighten the mood for me and keep things chill.
Kenzie, I'm curious on that. How would you compare that pressure to perhaps playing in the past, like growing up, obviously you played a ton. Like I can only imagine what that would be like. And you hit a note there when you mentioned once that light comes on, like all that, everyone's listening to you. And I can't imagine how much sweat would be flowing down my forehead during that call. So what was that like? And how would you compare that to your playing career?
I mean, yeah, like you've done interviews, you know what I mean? When you do press, there's a different level to your composure. But I think in terms of pulling from my hockey experience, it just takes like that first shift, right? Like it could be a huge game and all you need is that first shift. You just need to run into somebody or you need to take your first shot and then everything's calm, cool, and collected. So for me, I guess it was that Marcus Vidicek goal that really just put me back into being present. But yeah, I attribute so much to where I'm at and my passion for my career because of hockey. Like I started playing hockey when I could walk. Growing up in Ottawa, the women's hockey program was really well developed. So I got to pretty much play girls my whole life. And I then went on to play university hockey. And that I went to Mount Allison, which is a small school in New Brunswick. And that 5-year experience changed my love for the game. You know, blending athletics with academics was the best thing. And I encourage everyone to do that if they get an opportunity to do so. And that's where I found my passion for transitioning my love for the game and wanting to convey that on camera and get athletes' personalities out there. So I love the game, and now I can't believe I'm describing play and you know, bringing guys' big goal moments to life on the screen. It's so weird to think about, but I'm just so grateful, and I'm having a lot of fun. So
good for you.
Let's do this. Yeah.
And so you talk about, you know, big goal moments. When you called that first goal, did you have in your mind going into the game, like how you're going to make that? And I know you've called games before. You've also called junior A games in the past. Did you have like, you think like, I know how I'm going to call this goal or whatever, and then all of a sudden it's in the back of the net?
No, I you know, waking up that morning, I'm like, holy shit, like I don't even have a goal call, and like I still really don't. So I need to work on that. And I just keep playing. You know, our other commentator, Kevin Northup, who was before me, he was the best. He was a fan first. He knew how to capture the energy of the event, and his passion came through in his voice. He had the best voice. So I just kept trying to channel him and live in the moments. But I mean, it's also hard to kind of maybe think of what that tone will sound like because it's a female voice. And so our tone is a little different. So I'm not used to hearing what a female's like goal sound would be like. Right. So there's still a huge learning curve to this because there isn't a lot of women doing this role.
So did you have any idols growing up?
Like on camera?
Yeah, like we can think of, you know, you had Doris Burke and whatnot, but who were some of the people, perhaps people you looked at for inspiration through all of this?
I mean, yeah, when I first started, I just remember I keep going back to this one interview I did where I was saying I would be young and I'd be eating my Fruit Loops in the morning and I'd see Holly Horton at the desk and I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Like that would be sweet to do that one day. But that's really all you ever see women was sitting at the anchor desk. You didn't see them describing play. You know, you didn't really see them creating a lot of content, and that's shifted big time these days. And so as, you know, this role in terms of play-by-play it has evolved for me in the past year. I've really looked to women like Leah Hextall as well. And I think her name's Hannah Nadine. She was the first woman to do the OHL. So the Canadian Hockey League's had female voices before. I think she's now over in the Western Hockey League, but it's a very limited list. Yep. So I still, you know, Kevin Northup, who was our guy beforehand, he's still to me like the voice of maritime hockey for me. So I'll always look up to him.
If you had a chance to call one game, what would it be?
Ooh, probably like Team Canada Sochi 2014 win with like Marie Foucla's overtime goal. That would just be legendary. Or like a Sens Leaf game. That would be friggin' great. I think I'd be a little one-sided. I'd be a little one-sided, so I don't know if I'd be the right pick. I'd be pretty biased.
You just be the rights. You just be the regional rights guy. You go on TSN 5, right? You can be all you want for Sens, if you will. Yeah,
like that would be sweet. I mean, Women's World, we're fingers crossed that it's happening here in Halifax in May. So that would be unbelievable for women's hockey, for the Maritimes. I'm hopeful. You never know what's going to happen, but the girls were here not long ago to train. So a little taste of the female game is happening hopefully sometime soon.
I meant to ask this earlier. Did you ever play for Luke Richardson when he coached with the Lady Sens?
Yeah. So in my grade 12 year, I played for the Provincial Women's Hockey League for the Ottawa Junior Sens. I still have my jerseys, actually. They're my prized possession. My only Sens jersey, actually. And he was our head coach. And so that was the best year ever. Like he'd bring some guys around, his good buddy Dagger and Chopper. Could not tell you what Chopper's real name is, unfortunately, but he was a great guy. Dagger and Chopper, they were our assistant coaches. And he was an unbelievable influence on what it means to be a composed coach and how to break down the simplicity of a play. So that year for me was incredible. The Provincial Women's Hockey League incorporates a lot of travel. It's mainly, you know, the Toronto outskirt regions. Ottawa and Nepean has a team now, which they're doing really well. So pretty much every weekend we were on the road going to Toronto, to Whitby, Brampton, anywhere. So my teachers knew come Friday I wasn't going to be there. So they got on my schedule for the most part, but that league is great. You're seeing a lot of great developed players coming through there, making the Canadian national team. I mean, Jamie Lee Rattray is a great example of someone who's come up through the Ottawa women's program. She made the team last year for Worlds. I think they're probably going to shuffle things up a bit for next year, but she's a great example of someone who came through that Sens program and is just absolutely killing it. So Luke was a great coach, such a big influence. That family is incredible. I think Morgan's a teacher now. So it was insane. I still am just so grateful for the hockey system in Ottawa and what it gives to young girls and to young teams. It's such a great hockey city,
How often do you get back to Stittsville, and what's your favorite thing to do when you're rolling down Main Street here?
I did get back over Christmas, actually. I was quite grateful. I got home for a couple of days into good old Stittsville. I grew up in Crossing Bridge and then moved to Deer Run, so just off Westridge. So Eliza is my home base. And I'd always just walk down the Trans-Canada Trail to Quitters, Brent, and I'd have a nice latte. Some girls I went to high school with work there. So that's my go-to. Their scones are to die for.
A little known fact, my wife used to make their scones every morning until they got an oven at Quitters. And so she had made them for like 2 straight years or something. She was up at 6 a.m. every morning to make scones.
Is there a magic ingredient? Like, did she come up with the recipe? I'm going to need it.
Okay, here's something that's going to sound really odd. So when I was traveling on the road, she makes this cinnamon scone and they're with like chocolate chips, but there's cinnamon. Anyway, you couldn't get them in Canada. So I was smuggling them across the border. I would go to Target and all these places and Walmart to try and find cinnamon chips so she could make these scones. We have bags of them in the freezer still because I still left over. I'd come home with a suitcase full of cinnamon chips. Yeah, that's the secret.
All right. I need to get better at cooking too. So that's on my to-do list.
So does Mark. So we appreciate your time, Kenzie. We wish you all the best. And as you tweeted out, right after that game, simply day one. And we know there are certainly many more days to come for you and your career. We look forward to following along.
Thanks so much, guys. Let's get these Sens into some better shape, eh? Let's hope these next 5 years things shift, things change.
Agreed.
All on Mark at this point.
Okay.
See you, Kenzie. Take care.
Thanks so much.
Welcome back to the Wally and Methot Show. Now we go live to his cave. Here is Craig Medallia.
Yes, from the cave, we have a brand new segment. We reached out on Twitter to ask if anyone had any questions for you guys, and we had a bunch. So I went through, I pulled out a few of the best ones, and no particular order. We're just going to start buzzing through these. You guys all set?
Oh, yeah.
Wait, have these been vetted by a professional?
Yes, I read them over. I had to go through all the comments and pick out all the good ones and take out all the bad ones. So now we are left the 5 best. So okay. Let's rock. Okay, this one's we're gonna kick one off here for both of you, and it kind of deals. You guys both did a lot of traveling with sports teams and stuff. What was there ever a city on a road trip that you always looked forward to visiting? And conversely, was there one that you dreaded going to? And that comes from Tkachuk Norris at Dig Ghost on Twitter.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go first here. For me, favorite road city, I'll keep it short and sweet. Probably would have been any team on the West Coast. I love going to LA, and then we had a couple of days off, having fun out there was always good. Worst city would probably be Winnipeg for obvious reasons.
Interesting. I do like the West. The West is easy to pick. However, there is no city greater to get to a day early if you can than Nashville. Nashville is the greatest city on the NHL circuit by far. I've had many struggles in a broadcast the night after enjoying Nashville.
It's always the media guys. It's always the media guys in Nashville. It's never the players.
No, that's what I always love that one. And I will say, like, I've had the scariest night of my life in Detroit where I could see the hotel from the restaurant, but they told us, like, take a cab. We're like, no, we got this. We're going to walk. And so my cameraman, Dave, and I are walking back, and all of a sudden just people start coming out of nowhere, and they're all wanting money from us. And so we emptied our wallets and kept on our way. I had people. You guys
got held up.
Yeah. No, terrified. But this was before the new rink. But this was, I will never forget that night in my life where I had someone on the phone going, I'm now crossing this street. If I go missing, I've just crossed this street. Yeah. Like,
wow.
Yeah, that was not a fun time.
Underrated party city, Pittsburgh. I had a great time there. I don't know if you guys have ever.
Great city.
Oh, yeah. Underrated. I wasn't expecting to have as much fun there as I did. Anyways, okay. Number two question here. This one's again for both of you guys. It comes from Adrift, at Adrift W Friends on Twitter. Which former teammate / coworker would you want by your side in the event of an alien invasion?
Okay, I'll start. I'm going to go with Ian Mendes because Ian knows lots of useless trivia and he's all in that kind of world, like big Seinfeld Simpson guy. Like, I think he can maybe talk us out of anything. So I'm going with Ian Mendes will save me from any alien attack. And if not, Mark Masters, who I would just throw at them and then run the other way. Zigzag and roll. Same thing with the aliens.
It is, yeah.
For me, I'm not bragging, but I would probably pick myself only because I have a large, let me finish. I have a large property with my dad out in a rural area about an hour from Ottawa, and there's some structures there to hide out in, and we have guns for protection, of course. So that would be a no-brainer for me. I would go there immediately. But if I had to pick a player just to tag along with, probably Eric Gryba, because he hunts. He's got a lot of firearms as well. You got to think firearms because people get a little loopy during these disasters. We've all seen the disaster movies. You can't trust anybody. They all want what you have. So I would flee the city. I would flee the city so fast you wouldn't know I was gone.
What if guns don't work on aliens?
Listen, I'm not a gun nut by any means. Okay, I'm not. But when it comes to survival, you need protection. Okay. And I don't care. And I feel like the protection thing comes more around ourselves, around human beings. They become a little crazy in these scenarios. Okay. So we'll leave it at that.
We will leave it at that. Number 3. This one's for Brent Wallace himself. What was your favorite host city for a world championship you covered?
That's a good question, but I'm going to probably say.
That actually, sorry to interrupt you. That comes from Unparalleled Success at Positive Sens Fan. If you're going to talk about how great the question is, let's get some credit there. So yeah, sorry to cut you off.
I will say probably Zurich, Switzerland was. We spent over, I think, 30 days in Zurich, and it is absolutely stunning. So I was hoping to eventually get to Moscow or to St. Petersburg, which I heard were really beautiful cities. But for host city, I would say. Zurich. I've also done like Vienna and Paris and Prague for training camps, but Zurich is such a stunning, beautiful city.
Meth, was there ever a non-NHL city that you traveled to that was kind of cool that you look back on super positively?
I had a really good time in Košice, Slovakia.
Okay.
Wally knows all these places that I'm talking about.
I did 2 championships there. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we spent a little time in Finland too, which I loved. I loved Finland, but Košice, Slovakia was something else.
And you know what's great about that city though? It's like a smaller town and
tiny.
People weren't very excited. Like I remember people like, oh, we're going to Košice until we get to Bratislava. That place is amazing.
Wally, where was that interview? Where the guy, that massive giant dude?
That's like, there. That's Košice. Yeah.
That might be one of my favorite blooper interviews I've ever seen. Yeah, it's on Wally's page. It's so good.
I love it. All right, we're going to move on. We got 2 more left. This one's coming from Sens guy Nick. You guys can both probably answer this, I guess. Who was the biggest character in the room that you played with, or Brent, that you covered, if you'd like to chime into that too?
I'll go first here. For me, I mean, there's many. Jared Boll would be one who I played with in Columbus. He's just ridiculous guy, really funny, great team guy. But Chris Neal here in Ottawa, hands down, biggest character. I still remember coming off the plane. I think I did or said something really, really stupid to him on the plane, which I shouldn't have done, or maybe I pranked him or something. And I get off the plane, I walk to my car, and a peanut butter and jelly sandwich had been smeared all over my windshield. And I'm talking like lots of peanut butter. And it's all over my windshield. And all I could see is Nealer kind of like skimpering off in the distance to his truck and took off. It was obviously him. But he's one of the few guys, you can't do anything about it because he'll literally beat the crap out of you. So Nealer, funny guy in the room too, pranked a lot of guys. I'd go with him.
He and I chirped each other mercilessly. I can remember, like, he always would talk about my gray hair, and I'd be like, "Nice of you to put your teeth in today." So he was one, but Andre Wall was another one. Andre Wall was perhaps the first classic prankster in that room that I can remember. He'd come in wearing like a clown red nose certain times. Like, there was lots of stuff he would do that while you're trying to do interviews with other guys, that would really distract you, for lack of better words. So Andre Wall would probably be up at the top too.
Okay, good, tough guys. A lot of tough guys I've noticed in that.
They're always the best. Tough guys are
always
the best.
Yeah, right, good to know. Okay, last one, and this one comes from Chris Lilwall at JC Lilwall on Twitter. Has Mark ever been to an event, party, or been in a room where he's felt he had no business being there based on the other people in the room?
Oh, that's an easy one for me. I was a rookie called up with the Columbus Blue Jackets, and we were in Los Angeles. And we weren't leaving until the next day. So after the game, the following morning, and I went out with 3 or 4 other guys, 5 other players. Most of them were vets. Went to a big bar down in Hollywood, in West Hollywood, and we ended up drinking in the same booth as Paris Hilton.
Yes.
At the time, Paris was on top of her game, right? So we end up getting invited to her after party at her house. Now, bear in mind that I'm a rookie who couldn't afford a really nice suit. So I'm wearing this like Marshall style 3/4 length down my thigh, like suit jacket. It looked terrible. It looked like a trench coat. I just looked awful. And I look like a child at this point. In any case, the legendary driver, Mike, who drives the players around all the time in Los Angeles, drove us to Paris Hilton's house. We barely got up the hill to get to her place. Still remember the undercarriage kind of smacking up against the pavement going up the hill. So we finally get to her place. There's like 5 of us still all together with a little crew of people. We go in through security. I had no business being there. And I'm walking around, and I actually got to meet Paris, which is really cool. Again, very nervous the whole time. But at one point, I need to go to the washroom. So I asked security, I'm like, where do I go here? He takes me downstairs into her basement. She had a friggin' cage full of monkeys at the bottom of the steps. And it scared the living shit out of me because I didn't realize they were there until I walked by. I'm like, oh God, she's got monkeys in her backyard. And I remember just going through like this random bedroom. There's clothes all over the floor. Like, it looked like it hadn't been prepared for anybody. So that would be, and then I obviously, needlessly to say, I barely got any sleep that night. I get to the bus in the morning. Ken Hitchcock's looking at us all getting on the bus going like, Jesus, what were these guys doing? So yeah, good introduction into the NHL for me.
That's a beauty.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Brent, were you at Paris Hilton's house that night?
No. There's been a couple where I'm like, I go to the NHL awards. I think I did it 10 straight years in Las Vegas. And so there's always lots of stuff going on surrounding the awards. And I remember I've been at parties and you're like, oh, they're here too. You're like, how did I get into this same party? But I always said I would never tell the stories necessarily. So I'm not going to. But I remember Mustafa, who was the Old Spice guy.
Yeah.
So, okay, so there's one night and he's at the NHL awards, but the night before there's a big party, and the camera guy I'm with at the time, Owen, ends up partying all night with him. The next day, Mustafa, I believe that's his name, was walking the red carpet, and he looks over, sees my camera guy, and just goes, "Hey, how you doing?" Then he just keeps on going, and I'll never forget that as long as I live. That was one of the most funny moments. Anyway, yeah.
No monkeys involved in that story, but still a good, good story.
No, there's been a few, but anyway, that's good stuff. Well, I'm just going to get out of this now and move on.
Good call.
But let's get to trivial trivia, shall we? Because today, trivial trivia is presented by gongshow.com. Now, here's what we've got going on. So our friends at Gong Show have given us a sauce-off hockey game to the winner of today's trivia question. Now, summer's coming up. This is the ultimate backyard hockey game, perfect for the cottage, road trips, tailgates, or playing in the driveway. Now, Meth, we will see if you and I can perhaps snag one of these and take it out in the backyard and see who's better. Actually, you know what? I'm going to have my son challenge you instead because he's an actual hockey player and I don't want to sully the Wallace name. So we'll have Ryan take you on in a challenge and see who can do better at the sauce-off hockey game. How about that?
Yeah, I'm nervous because if I lose, it's going to look awful. But, and I know he can play, and I've seen some videos of him shooting the puck around. So I got my work cut out for me, but I'll practice.
This is huge. It's a $250 value, and it's a huge thank you to our good friends at gongshow.com. All right, Craig, let's go with the trivia.
Yeah, well, first we're going to rewind back to last week's show where we had Jason Spezza on, and we asked how many wood sticks did Jason Spezza get back from his buddy, and the answer was 6. So shout out to everyone who got that right, but particularly at Space K7, who scored themselves a sweet signed picture from Mark Methot. So we're going to reach out on that one shortly. But today's question, so we're going to rewind back to an earlier interview, and we're going to ask, what was Kenzie's favorite treat at Quitters Coffee in Stittsville? You can send your answers to Twitter using hashtag Wally and Methot. The contest closes on Saturday at noon Eastern, and we will reveal the winner on the next show on Monday, who wins the dope Gong Show Saucer King game.
All right, and speaking of Monday, that is our next show. Of course, it comes your way on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And also you can hear us across the podcast networks like Google, Apple, and Spotify. And before we go, Matt, stick taps to Andre Tourney, the Bear, who coaches the Ottawa 67s. He basically coached a deal on Wednesday to coach every team in Canada all at the same time. Now, I'll tell you what I'm talking about. He did sign a 6-year deal to coach the Ottawa 67s, but I got a feeling before then he'll be long gone off to the NHL once again. Here's what he signed on with Hockey Canada to do, though. Assistant coach at 2021 World Championship, assistant coach of the 2022 Olympic team in Beijing, head coach once again of the 2022 World Juniors, and finally, head coach of Team Canada at the 2022 World Championships. Like, the guy can simply flat out coach. We've seen it. And of course, you played for him when he was an assistant coach with the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah, he was just a really good, passionate hockey guy. And the role that he had with the Ottawa Senators when I was there and playing under him, he was an assistant coach, right? So, you're generally going to get a much different attitude and demeanor out of an assistant coach versus a head coach. Certainly he'll be a little more relaxed in his prior position. But right now, he's found his niche. He's doing really well. I'm happy for him because, like I said, just a really good dude. And, I hope it works out for him.
Should be great. And of course, we will tell you right now, he's going to be on our show on Monday. He will be a guest. We look forward to that. But for now, take care. Have a great weekend, and we will see you on Monday.